Hey everybody, I'm Shane Ireland. Welcome to another episode of Tasting Notes. As is often the case when I find myself sitting here with a plate of very nice tobacco in front of me, I am here to discuss something very special today. It's summertime. It's warm, very warm. Not my favorite time of the year, but that's okay because that also means that it is sun bear season. And this year, sun bear season is, I think, maybe the most, I was going to say interesting, and like in my personal opinion, that might be true. But this is the biggest deal we've seen in sun bear season since maybe the original release. Jeremy Reeves and his team at Cornell and Diehl every year release a special edition tobacco that is arguably one of the most popular things that they produce called Sun Bear. Sun Bear has seen several different editions where the base blend is always the same, and the little secrets behind the components and the ingredients are always the same. One thing changes, and that is the honey that is used. We've seen several iterations of different types of honey, the mountain flower, the black locust, the original version, etc., etc. This year, as you'll notice, and probably from the sort of different color theme and different palette here, we have Bear Navy Cask. What does Navy Cask mean? Navy Cask means that not the tobacco itself, just the honey that is used on this blend has been aged in an ex-rum barrel. That's where the Navy Cask moniker comes from. Of course, Navy blends in pipe tobacco often being associated with the old practice of using ex-rum barrels to transport tobacco across the Atlantic. It was a good way to preserve the tobacco, and they found that it imparted a really pleasant flavor as well. So the honey used on this year's Sun Bear Navy Cask was aged in an ex-rum barrel. And that sort of means that it's been infused, the honey itself has been infused with this boozy character and the barrel quality itself too. And I think that on paper, I was like, oh my gosh, this is right up my alley. I love Navy blends. I love rum. I love honey and Sun Bear as a blend itself. And it does not disappoint. So let's get into it. I have to point out, I love the color palette of this release, Sun Bear Navy Cask. We've got our little sailor Sun Bear there. He's got his hat and his mom tattoo. I also have a mom tattoo here. Or it says wow, depending on like how you're looking at it. It's the same blend as always. In this case, we have specific 2023 grades of Bright Virginia from Canada. There is 2020 Thai-grown Izmir and 2028 Turkish-grown Izmir. To that, obviously, a wildflower honey that has been aged in a rum cask has been added, and a little something extra too. So the interesting thing about this is Sun Bear is and always has been this really bright, zesty, summertime kind of a pipe tobacco. Although you can smoke it all year long, I find it to be an all-day smoke anyway. It's been all about these sort of brighter and zestier flavors, sort of at the treble end of the spectrum, a little less bass notes, but still really complex, still really fresh, floral, lightly sweet, all that good stuff. The addition of the rum-barrel-aged wildflower honey adds a whole new dimension to this blend. I think it still has the body and the strength and the aroma that we would expect from the blend. Everything on the base and middle is sort of register. The base and the middle register is sort of amplified. We have something that's a little bit richer and has a little bit more broad of a spectrum of flavors, and really flavors that I think complement the blend and the components extremely well. Man, the tin note is incredible. I get a hint of all of those sort of, lightly floral, a little bit of that elderflower, a little bit of that sort of boozy quality, which is present in the sort of, I would say, original Sun Bear blend, but it's amplified a little bit here because of that rum barrel-aged honey. It's a little bit sweeter. I get a little bit more of a barrel character like I get from certain whiskeys and certain rums, a little like vanilla notes, maybe even chocolate. It's got a nice bready quality to it, still a zesty, bright Virginia character. It's rich, deep, and sweet. The sweet notes range from lightly fruity to honestly what reminds me a lot of a mix between like a snickerdoodle cookie and maybe like a white macadamia nut cookie. Like you have some of those warming spices. I don't actually know definitively what the rum was in the barrel that the honey has been aged in, but I suspect it was a spiced rum because you do have some of those warming spices coming through, some of that vanilla coming through, which is part of the barrel character. Incredibly complex and so appetizing. So the flakes themselves, really, really nice, dense and supple flakes. We see a lot more darkness here than we do with the original Sun Bear blend. I mean, the honey itself, the character, the character that honey has been infused with from the rum barrel, and then the pressing, obviously, you end up with something that looks a good shade darker. There's a lot more chestnut and even some really darker flecks in here, whereas typically we're looking at a little bit more of a blonde to chestnut range. So I immediately noticed the difference visually. I immediately noticed the difference in the room note and the tin note. And then also, you know, the character of the smoke itself, which I'll get into in a minute. This one, I gave just a tiny bit of drying time. So a lot of aeration. I rubbed it out normally, which is what I usually do. And I gave it a couple of minutes of drying time, not too much, because you really do want to preserve all of that complexity and all of the nuance. But I do find that depending on the pipe that you're smoking and depending on your preferences, you may want to aerate this one a little bit extra or even give it a minute before you rub it out. And then you're going to find that it takes to the flame well and performs well in a variety of chamber sizes. Look at all that smoke. Tons of volume of smoke. Very dense on the palate. Creamy, rich. A lot of those notes that I picked up in the tin note are present kind of immediately. That sort of vanilla character, the boozy quality, even what I perceive to be like the sweets, like I mentioned snickerdoodle and white macadamia nut cookies. Underneath that, you have a Virginia character that is still zesty and still bright, but has maybe a little bit more of the maltiness that I tend to associate with darker grades of Virginias. Beautiful floral notes, a little earthiness from the two different grades of Izmir, the 2020 Thai and the 2018 Turkish. The retrohale is insane. It's difficult to even articulate or put your finger on one thing because there's so much going on here. To me, the main differences between the other editions of Sun Bear, which I have loved all of, and this one here, is the sort of added richness, the deeper flavor profile and deeper base notes. And honestly, there's an incredibly mature feeling to this tobacco. It tastes vintage, sort of right out of the tin. It has the sort of deep sweetness that I associate with aged Virginia. This is the kind of flavor profile that I associate with, you know, like Capstan Blue, maybe even a Scudo that you've aged for like a decade or more. It also even reminds me of some really, really old vintage tins of pipe tobacco and vintage tins of cigarettes that I've smoked. It's just a really, really amazing balance between a brighter and like sort of top note heavy zesty blend that is good for the warm weather and something that I could easily find myself smoking through the winter as well. The sweetness that I get here is more like the difference between like a cane sugar sweetness and a molasses. Like it's just richer and deeper. The side stream's amazing. If somebody gave this to me and my pipe was already packed, I would guess that this was extremely well-aged pipe tobacco. It just has all of those notes, like the deep, rich sweetness, a tiny bit of spice, a little bit of earthiness, and that sort of malty and sweet character from the Virginias. Obviously, most of the things that I choose to sit here and talk to you guys about are things that I enjoy and things that I'm excited about. I've enjoyed the evolution of Sun Bear and the different iterations with the different types of honey over the years. Mark my words, this one's legendary. This one's going to go down as one of the coolest things Jeremy Reeves and his team have ever released. It smokes straight out of the tin like a vintage tobacco. And I've had that feeling before from other blends that were not aged, but this one could fool me in a blind test for sure. I think obviously if you enjoy Navy Flakes, if you enjoy Virginias in general, if you're a fan of Sun Bear, you cannot possibly miss this one. And I think that if you're like even a Virginia Perique smoker and you enjoy stuff that has a little bit more spice and a little bit more depth, this is going to be right up your alley. So the coolest thing about Bear Navy Cask for me is that obviously I loved the other ones so much that I cellared them as deeply as I possibly could. So I've been sitting on some of my older tins of Black Locust and Mountain Flower. And the interesting thing here is it feels like you kind of have a rotation at this point. You can have something for earlier in the day or maybe even the hotter months of the year, and something that you can smoke in the evenings or through autumn even. I do still think that this is a great example of a tobacco that can be smoked in warm weather, especially if you happen to find yourself out on the water or whatever. Navy Cask, right? This is the same impeccable blend that many of us have fallen in love with. And Jeremy has just taken that equalizer and picked certain frequencies and turned them up. And the experience is frankly pretty magical. I wax poetic about a lot of this stuff. It's not that often that I am like blown away and shocked by a tobacco that on paper I'm probably already familiar with. And the addition of the rum-barrel-aged honey here is just a game changer. Yeah, I look forward to smoking this as it ages. It's going to have long legs. I have no doubt about that. But don't sit on it. Enjoy it now. It's ready to go. Today I'm smoking the brand new Cornell and Diehl Bear Navy Cask in a signature Tom L-Tang rusticated poker. It's a tall, sort of narrow chamber, and I feel like it really gives me the opportunity to see how these flavors develop in the bowl. This is one blend that you're going to find is very comforting and very easy to smoke and just enjoy. And the complexity factor is kind of through the roof. Try it in a bunch of different pipes, smoke it at different times of the day, find what you enjoy. Most importantly, have fun and enjoy it. Thanks so much, Jeremy. We appreciate it. See you guys next time.